Next up, we have our friends from the New York Post and Alley Interactive. We have Michael List, Joe Vitale, and Linnea Huxford. Michael List is the Vice President of Product at the New York Post Digital Network. Michael plays a leading role in all of the digital initiatives for the New York Post, Page Six, and Decider. Michael's media experience spans over 25 years where he has worked on a broad range of projects from both the product and marketing perspective. Joe Vitale is a project manager at the New York Post. Joe manages multiple projects across channels and resources and leads them through each phase of their life cycle. We also have Linnea Huxford, who is a principal software developer at Alley, who specializes in WordPress backend development. Prior to Alley, Linnea was a freelance WordPress plugin developer who specialized in solving challenging integration issues. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Michael, Joe, and Linnea.
Great, thanks, Susie. Linnea, are you now sharing? Or...
Yes, I'm going to bring it up here.
Thank you. Having hosted a couple of these events in our office before, it's nice to be back and to be presenting. So we're going to talk about how we were blinging out Gutenberg tools to power curation tools. And this is around our new homepage that we are about to launch. But first, with our current homepage today, we've got elements that are basically static furniture. We have this grid of top stories. We have other static modules as you go down the page. And to curate this, currently we use zones, and you can slot the story to the position that you want it in. And that's really pretty much all you can do at the moment. But where we are going with our new homepage, which we're actually going to be launching very, very soon, it's a complete rebuild, and it's a very different system. We have a large library of different blocks and different modules with different styles, and we can move them around the page with full flexibility, which gives us a much richer and more engaging visual vocabulary. So what our business goals and challenges were, what we were really trying to do with this is we needed to build the backend tools that were going to make it really easy to curate this new experience. And the goal, again, was we wanted a dynamic, engaging homepage that was going to be reflective of an ever-changing news cycle, but also still be really easy for us to use. And so we needed a wide variety of blocks, as I was saying, that we can move around, we can rearrange them, and that's so that we can better feature our important stories. We can have more voice, we can package stories together and create hierarchy, create pace for our users, change the length of the page or parts of the page to reflect what's happening, better showcase art, all of these things that we hope to be more informative and more engaging. But as you introduce so many more elements and moving parts, we needed to also make sure it was still easy enough for us to curate and edit every slot of the page, that we weren't building something that was too much to keep up. And that includes things like making sure you can have parts of it be manually curated, but have other parts that you can just automatically update, so you're not needing to touch the entire page. And we wanted to make sure that you could have more than one person working on at a time, so you could have somebody packaging up a particular set of stories, or if something's about to be breaking, or if you have someone who's from the video desk or from the shopping desk or for a particular other desk, you can let that person curate their page while the main homepage editor is still able to do the rest of things. And we also wanted to be able to make sure we could edit all of the meta right there, whether it was headlines or thumbnails or the tags or the decks. We didn't want to have to go to the initial article post to do that. And we wanted, to speak to the earlier point about Gutenberg, we want our editors to see exactly what the users would see on the front end, so that while you're doing this, you're getting the fidelity and a fully visual editing experience. And it also had to be clean and easy to use and highly performant and all of those big things, and to leverage the tools we had in Gutenberg instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and start this thing from scratch. So now I'm going to hand it over to Joe from our team, and he's going to give you a really quick demo of the tools.
Great, thanks. So yeah, now we're going to briefly run through how we curate new content for the homepage. So you can play that video, Linnea. So first, I'm scrolling on the back end of a curated page to review the various elements we've already curated and customized. Next, I'm adding an additional module here by selecting the plus button, then news module, and right away you will see a module already populated with some stories. To get the visual layout I want for this placement, I'm going to use our module selector to change this to a news module 2, which takes just a moment of scrolling. And because I want this module to showcase real estate content, I will switch my backfill source from the whole site to a specific section. In this case, that would be real estate. And since I think post readers would love this water tower story, I can pin this post in its current position and begin customizing some of its elements, like its tagline, which we call the webwood, our main headline, and our excerpt at the bottom there. And I will also use our recent posts tab, which allows me to sort and select specific posts, then drag them onto the page. So again, keeping with the theme, I'll choose real estate. I'll scroll down to this panel here and see some of our great real estate coverage. I can drag those stories right in and they remain in place. Same thing for my second story. And now I have a great package of real estate content for our homepage. And with that, I will let Linnea take things over and talk about how it's all possible.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about how it's built, the architecture and the technology behind it. The curated tool uses 2 custom post types. The curation modules are created independently from the full page layout. As a post type, curated pages, they have all the features of a regular post type, such as the ability to preview and schedule publishing. The most recently published post is set as the home page. We leverage the existing WordPress post lock to accomplish this simultaneous editing. The curated page contains curation modules, another custom post type, and each section can be edited simultaneously. Edited separately, so it can be simultaneously edited the home page. WordPress prevents multiple users from editing the same curation module since it's a post. The post type powers the Gutenberg block. The curation tool registers custom Gutenberg blocks, such as the news module. The news module block can be configured in many different ways, all based on flexible JSON configurations. Block sidebars provide options for customizations without causing shift in editor layout. Images can be uploaded in the sidebar. Titles and excerpts can be configured. There's user interface controls to adjust number of posts, whether to display an image, to pin or unpin content. The news module block has different templates. For example, it can be configured to display a big photo module or a daily lead module with related content. There's a flip module option for further display choices. The backfill source can be configured to fill from the whole site or from just a section or a tag. JSON template files are parsed in both PHP and JavaScript so that blocks are displayed on the front end and in the editor. We built custom REST API routes to power the curation tool. For example, there are routes for retrieving most popular posts from Parsley or searching the site for recent content. The homepage only needs to show the most recent content, so it's limited to the just last 7 days, and this helps with performance queries and increases the backend speed. So that's a brief look into the tech behind the curation tool. If you're interested in joining Ali and building tools like this, we're hiring. Thank you. Any questions?
Does anybody have questions for Michael, Joe, or Linnea? No questions. They might just save those for the networking later.
I can jump in with one. Maybe this is an obvious question, but Michael, it's certainly a big move to Gutenberg. The CMS changes for all of your editors. What's training looked like for them? Is it as simple as like get everybody in the room and we're going to go through it once? Do you roll it out section by section? What's your approach been?
The training for the move to Gutenberg was indeed a beast because we have a very large newsroom, and a newsroom that ranges from, digital natives to people that have, you took away the typewriter and they got lost. So, yeah, it was a big process and a big project that we took on very closely with our friends at Ali. And we set it up and we just went kind of team by team, came up with a really great, great outline, great course, as it were, to do that. And the people that needed more time, we gave more time to. We'd moved to Gutenberg around this time last year, more or less. And so that was a big summer project for last year. Now, to your point, Ryan, we're moving into a whole new territory with these tools. But at least with these tools, we're now talking about a much smaller subset of our users that are going to be working on the homepage. A few of whom were very involved with this process. And as we were working on the redesign front end stuff, we were showing them the back end. And, really, this was super collaborative within and between our organizations. There were a lot of those bullet points that I was presenting at the beginning. This was our edit team's desire. And they had some things in mind that we were sort of challenging Ali to go figure out. And as you can see, like, they really did, and they really came through. But sort of what's next, though, is to now take this curated page on the homepage and start rolling out all of these tools, both in terms of the visual vocabulary for the front end, but also the curation tools for the back end, and start adding it to other sections and other places. But at least that means, as it's a slower rollout, we'll be able to train people on the new stuff in much smaller, closer groups.
Very cool. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I have one
go ahead.
question. Sorry. Hi, I have one question for Linnea. You mentioned about simultaneous editing with WordPress post lock. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? That sounds very interesting.
Sure. So the Gutenberg block is powered by a post. So the code just looks to see if that post is currently being edited and uses that lock information. And there's custom JavaScript that basically handles that and can take over the editing if necessary.
Got it. Thank you.
And part of the solution too was sort of a workaround and structure that we broke the homepage down into different chunks. And therefore you could have somebody working in one chunk while working in another chunk. Or, because we're adding these blocks and modules, you could have somebody creating a block in a module that somebody else that's editing the homepage could then pull in to the proper position on the page. And so we really did try to come up with different ways, both on the technology side, but also on the workflow side and on the architecture of how we're putting the page together to make sure we could have more than one hand at a time working on this thing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, sorry. Yeah, so think about it, like the home page itself is a custom post type, and the sections of the home page are a separate custom post type, which are accessible, at the page level as Gutenberg blocks. So, you have the benefit of, even taking advantage of like only letting people using roles and permissions. Only certain people could create sections of the homepage. Other people are responsible for, organizing the layout of the homepage. So, we've really leveraged a lot of the built-in functionality in WordPress to create a pretty robust model. And we certainly looked at what was being developed with full site editing when we considered how we were going to build this out. And it wasn't, necessarily just yet quite the best fit, which is why another reason we took this route, because we actually get even more, robust sort of enterprise publishing functionality using this data model.
Got it. No, that's really awesome. I love it. Thank you.
I have a quick question as well. I think about a lot of the work that full site editing has been really making possible, and all the things that are working wonderfully with Gutenberg blocks. Are you mostly doing just real-time changes? Are you scheduling anything out? I ask because some of the cool things we did with Customizer, probably 5-6 years ago, we spent a lot of time talking about curating things into the future. Or are you mostly just focused on real-time publishing of what's coming on the homepage?
I mean, Joe, do you want to maybe take that? Though, one thing we should say is like, we're not fully live with this yet. We started a rollout and we were publishing it live. And then we paused because we wanted to make a few cosmetic changes. And now we're about to jump back in. So our actual non-dress rehearsal, real world experience here is still a little bit limited. But Joe, do you have a thought about that? A lot of it's real time because it's reacting to breaking news, but we know some things come down the pike in advance.
Yeah, when we're talking about the backfill options where you can, in my example where I had done real estate, and if I hadn't curated anything there, it would just keep pulling in the most recently published stories from real estate, that, stories with those sections. So, our sports section, they do a lot of scheduling, other sections that have embargoed content where they can't publish to a certain time. We could theoretically leave a space open on the page and make sure that it's inheriting a content that that story will have that attribute of. And then once it's published, it'll be curated onto the homepage. So it won't be necessary to directly move it if you do a scheduling on the article end. We haven't gotten that far in our publishing, kind of process yet, but that is something that it is capable of doing.
But Leo, to answer your question as well, like, yes, you could absolutely like schedule out an entire homepage layout, sections of the homepage. One of the reasons we built it this way using post types is if we did decide to want to do those sort of things in the future, we absolutely can.
And for the post, we don't schedule much of our content in advance, but for one of our websites, Decider, they do. So if that ever became something they wanted, that could become interesting, where you could, where they're not breaking news. So they could, in theory, like, you don't want to worry about weekend coverage, they could set up the whole weekend's homepage changes in advance.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of, right? So like weekend editors, oftentimes work on Wednesday or Thursday, but the changes go live on Saturday, right? So very, very common use case. And I think it's a fantastic idea, and I love the general approach. So great job, guys.
Wonderful. Any additional questions? I think we're